Having the courage to choose truth over belonging is the path of the powerful leader and a good quality moral man. Welcome to this week's Sovereign Men's Academy podcast or videocast, depending on where you're watching this. Today we're digging into an article I wrote. I think it's a very important article for these times with so much misinformation and tribal wars happening. So I started off the article with this statement: on the unconscious level, belonging is more important for survival than intelligence. The child must conform to its parents to ensure survival. My understanding of this started to arise in a conversation with a very good friend of mine and genius, Bo Chaseling. It's very weird because I think he's 16 now. But he has thinking capacities that the most educated man or woman just don't have. He has thinking capacities that are incredible. And both him and I have noticed that intellect is not highly looked upon. Apart from in deep diving expertises where you might make money from your expertise and your intelligence in academia, but most people are threatened by intellect. I'm going to get into that in a second. So again, that statement, on the unconscious level, belonging is more important for survival than intelligence. The child must conform to its parents to ensure survival. So, of course, the child looks up at the parents and it wants the parents to smile. If the parents are smiling at the child, it means the child is deeply accepted. And if the child is deeply accepted, it won't be abandoned. And if the child is deeply accepted, it will be fed. It will have a roof over its head. So there's a biological imperative to be accepted by a tribe. And as you'll see, this creates problems when it comes to what we call self-actualizing and being a very powerful leader. Because you're going to be a powerful leader, and if you're going to self-actualize, you must break away from the bonds of wanting to be accepted, and we'll dig into this in a moment. Even the mother's ability to bond emotionally with a child is more important than intelligence from a survival perspective. Her warm heart is more important than her intellect in bonding with the child. I then went on to write, the Taliban is a powerful force of survival, where the group bonds around what is obviously stupid ideas that are easily picked through by anyone with half a brain. But here they are, running a country. I'll probably get death threats. This is all over YouTube. We live in a very weird world. There's a reason for that. Again, when there's a blind allegiance to a dumb belief system, and that belief system creates certainty, and this brings me to the next thing that I state. The more intelligent you are, the more you are okay with uncertainty. I'll say that again. The more intelligent you are, the more okay you are with complexity. If you even look at the way the species has developed in its value structures and meme structures, we take religion as an example. Most religions are childish, of a childish orientation. Again, the less intelligent someone is, to avoid their fear of what's uncertain, the more they must make mental maps that explain the complexity of the immensity of the universe. That's how they feel certain. And when people feel certain, they feel safe. And there's a lot of manipulation happening at this point where people are being scared witless, and then they need mummies and daddies to save them, or governments to save them. So dumb ideas and groupthink, where the group bond around certainty, can be seen as one of the most driving, powerful forces of movements all over this planet. And in my experience, all these stupid ideas are always associated with emotion, meaning that emotion engages with a stupid idea. And of course, this poses a problem. So again, let's just break this down a little bit. I wrote an article earlier this week, not the one that I'm working from at this point. And in that article, I communicated about the need for reasoning and the need to develop critical thinking. And when we are developing critical thinking, we are able to look at any belief system for its truth or its mistruths. I'm going to get into why this is important if you want to be a powerful leader and a good moral human being with a good quality spiritual stance in life. Critical thinking requires one to be wrong. And we're going to see why this is important in the moment. Because if you can't be wrong, which most people don't want to be, because being wrong means they'll reject themselves. And on a deeper level, they'll be afraid that the tribe that they share those beliefs with will reject them as well. And bring that back to what I shared before. The less intelligent someone is, the less complicated their concepts are. Which is why I talked about the Taliban as an example. Very powerful, outlasted America, and now leading a country again based on stupid ideas, but blind allegiance to these stupid ideas because they provide certainty and a group identity. You see this played out in politics between the left and the right. I can't begin to tell you how many people have said to me lately, I'm not going to listen to that science, they're right-wingers, or I'm not going to listen to that science, they're left-wingers. Again, sorry, but just low intelligence. They're mixing ideology with statistics. And that comes into the emotional realm, the opposite of the intellectual realm of consciousness. So we're in danger because stupid ideas eventually destroy us. Now, what I see happening in the world at this point in time is quite an affront to me. And one of the reasons it's quite an affront to me is I've worked with men, women, children for many years around deep personal development, spiritual development, and helping them build their businesses, invest better, as a result of telling themselves the truth about themselves. So in deep personal development work, what one does is they look inside to tell themselves the truth about how they are behaving. They self-inspect and they go, oh, wow, I can see that that belief system is not true. That belief system isn't serving me. Now, again, as I said before, to do that, you have to be willing to be wrong. You need to be able to look inside and go, oh, wow, the belief systems that have been running me on the unconscious level are wrong. And then you seek for a better belief system. And when you've developed to a certain level, you actually go beyond belief systems altogether. But that's not for what we're doing today. And in that way, we evolve. So telling the truth is what's required to evolve. And specifically for personal development, telling the truth about where, for me, where I am wrong, where my beliefs come from old thinking patterns, from old ethoses that no longer serve their evolutionary pursuit. Now, to do that, as I said, you have to be willing to be wrong. But if we go back to what I started off with in the article, the unconscious wants you to belong. Now, let's just imagine that you belong to a group of people, and you do, who believe certain things. Now, the moment that these people believe certain things in your tribe, and you'll tend to hang around people with similar viewpoints and ethoses as you, what we have is not just one ego structure, we have what we call a group ego structure, a group identity. And to keep your place in that group, you will lower your intelligence, and you will not critique your ideas because you cannot be wrong. Because the unconscious says, geez, if I'm wrong, as I said, I'm going to judge myself, but not only will I judge myself, then I can't belong to this group anymore. And what you'll see groups do, and this is just really playing itself out in the culture at the moment, in society at the moment, all over the world. This is why we're really moving into some very, very sick times. We see it's not only that, oh, I can't be wrong because then I'm going to feel bad about myself, which is ego. But, oh, I can't be wrong because if I'm wrong, I won't be accepted in this tribe anymore. And that, as I said before, automatically dumbs people down because the unconscious wants to belong. So instead of truth seeking, which is required for evolution, the person downgrades themselves, and the group has a self-congratulatory relationship with everyone else in the tribe around their shared belief structures. So again, a really good way to see this is just what's happening between the left and the right, or the anti-vaxxers and the vaxxers. It's just playing out in all areas of society at this point. And so this is, I'm right, you're wrong, and because I'm right, I am self-congratulatory. And again, this is group ego. And as someone who spent their entire life working to undo their ego, and for those of you that have ever worked with me one-to-one or in deep groups, you'll go, how does he read people? Well, you can read people. We have access to all sorts of superpowers in our consciousness if we're willing to let go of our ego. We're way more than our ego. It's only actually a small part of our being and who we are. Most people don't get to access those types of superpowers because they're still wrapped up in an ego identity. So we have these group egos now, all self-congratulatory. Now, if you've got a group ego, and this gets really important, and the leader of the group ego, and the leader of the group ego is, you know, the one that's yelling the loudest, the educator, the informer of that group. Again, they get all sorts of validation from that group as the leader. So it's a double whammy for the leader, because the leader won't want to be truthful. The leader can't look inside and go, or maybe where's my thinking not correct? Where can I prove through evidence that my belief systems and my thinking is not correct? Now, again, that isn't going to happen, because if they were to find out they were wrong, they suddenly lose their position of power within that tribe. So here we have groups of people with allegiance to bonding rather than truth. Now, once you do that, the next step is you must protect your viewpoint completely. So again, we go back to the Taliban. Stupid idea, but a whole bunch of people bonding around this stupid idea, self-congratulatory in this idea, leaders of the Taliban who are informing, keeping power in. And so again, we've got these self-congratulatory groups, and you then must have enemies. because you must make others wrong so that you are right and you can keep the strength of the ego structure. So once again, instead of looking inside going, are my beliefs correct? Where could I be wrong? Which is required for evolution. The finger goes outward and goes, look, they disagree with us. They think differently to us. So they are the bad ones and we are the good ones. So a sick society. This is childish stuff. This is the behavioral patterns of unevolved people who have no idea of actually what they are on deeper levels of consciousness, because they're ego addicts. And ego addicts don't create good cultures and environments. I was thinking today, there's no way I'd run my family like I see the way government's running society, especially here in Australia at this point. Okay, now I'm not saying they're all wrong, by the way, but the way they communicate, the way they are acting, the way they've set up people to act against each other, that is just low consciousness rubbish. And you'll get to see why this is important on the personal level in a moment. So in transcending ego structures, one starts to observe themselves, see where they maybe are making a mistake. This is self-analyzing. We start to see our unconscious drivers rather than be our unconscious drivers. And this means we start to break away from ego identity. At that point, we can evolve. Something deeper in us moves. But as I said before, most people on the planet don't want to do that because, and here's the kicker, once you start to question your pre-existing belief systems and you start to evolve and change, you have to get used to not belonging. And for most people, that is deeply scary and they'd rather be sheep. But that is not the state of a leader. It is not the state of a powerful, evolving, spiritually, morally integrous human being. So again, critical thinking and self-analysis is in fact the enemy of belonging. I'm going back to the article now, but a sign of increasing spiritual, moral, and intellectual growth. As mentioned before, the increased intelligence gained from proving one's ideas to be wrong ensures one will have to leave the tribe that shares these beliefs and most likely to receive the anger of that tribe. So, from a metamorphosis perspective or a transformational perspective, and I'm going to get a bit spiritual here for a second because there is spiritual realities. And again, most people will never understand that because they can't transcend the ego and have a real concept of who they are on deeper levels of consciousness. What people are doing is, if you're evolving, you have to go through a threshold, which is, what am I going to follow? Am I going to follow self-inspection, critiquing my belief systems, seeing what's truly true? If you're doing that, the next challenge will be, how do I move against the tribe that I was once with? Because once you start evolving and changing, your thinking and viewpoints won't be contained by old tribes. And this is almost like I talk about in one of my earlier podcasts for the Sovereign Men's Academy about moving from a child to a man. And part of that is, you'd go out into the wilderness and you'd have these experiences of moving through being challenged. And the challenge itself, if you went through that challenge, took you from being a child to a man. Well, it's the same thing from moving to be a sheep or part of a tribe to a leader to standing out. You have to be willing, once you connect to your truth, to stand up for that. And you don't have to be stupid about it, because it is a pretty aggressive place out there at this point, but you will be challenged about moving into that truth. And what's fascinating is the more that you move into that truth, the more powerful you become, but the more people will be alienated by you. And on a deeper level, this is a transition from the child element of belonging to a tribe to being a way shower, to being a man who stands up for what is right. When you do that, you are provided with emphasis from good quality archetypal spiritual energies that you don't get access to when you are still playing the sheep in the flock. And this is super important at this point in time too. There's another element here. We have people of very high intellect that are running our medias, our social media platforms, our platforms. And I can tell you right now that many of them are up to no good, but that's beside the point. That's for another time. So having the courage to choose truth over belonging is a transitional phase for anyone that needs to step into power. Now, I want to take this just in another direction for one moment, because I think it's super important. So most people, their truth is an ego truth. So you can see plenty of that out there at this point in time. People are, let me just share one from, say, my work, working with archetypes, personality patterns. So as an example, let's just say when the virus first hit, I had my own reactions. I want to tell you how I dealt with my own reactions. So as a child, I could not trust authority figures. I had evidence that I couldn't trust authority figures because of what happened to me, right? So already I had a bias. My bias was, wow, I can't trust anyone in authority. And that shaped a lot of how I created my life. As I said before, if you're a growing, evolving human being, you want to understand all your biases. You want to understand all your emotional drivers from the unconscious level, because that's the only way you awaken. That's the only way you end egoic control. So when COVID first happened, as an example, I'm watching my biases and going, yeah, I can't trust them. And so I look at my biases and understand my biases, because they could be telling me information that is incorrect, just driven from a wounding I had as a child. Okay? I have a friend who's the opposite to me. She grew up in a family where the mum and dad rarely looked after her. And she's had never experienced betrayal from authority figures. In fact, all her authority figures looked after her and gave her everything. She's had a princess life until about 3 years ago. The great thing about the ending of the princess life is that we awaken to suffering and the realities of life. But her response, her bias, her unconscious bias, not that she's aware of that, is, well, I trust everything that I'm told by their government. That's just a bias based on her experiences. I trust authority figures. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is you won't get to what your truth is unless you can even see your biases. And in seeing your biases, you start to undo your ego. And when you start to undo your ego, then you pick up new evolutionary impulses that come from the cosmos. Yes, that's correct. And you are the picker-upper of those. And so this arises as wisdom. And again, what do we mean by wisdom versus reaction? So if my only reaction when, say, the virus first started was out of the my bias based on my wound, that you can't trust authority, then that would have driven a very unthinking reaction to what was happening. And this is what you're seeing at the moment. You're seeing, again, if we go back to the tribes, they're belonging in the tribe, enemy making, not questioning their belief structures, because if they question their belief structures, they can no longer belong to that tribe. Typically of low intelligence, because if you want to belong to a tribe, you will dumb yourself down, because you can't be truthful about anything that will get you kicked out of the tribe. So all they're doing is reacting from their ego's belief systems. That is reaction. That is not from wisdom. Wisdom comes from pondering, critical thinking, and undoing the ego. And another way of saying this is that most reactivity comes from belief systems. And these belief systems, say if you look at left and right, the war between left and right, you're seeing belief systems that, you know, if you grew up in the left, you've got those belief systems. They're now sewn into your ego structure. If you've grown up on the right, you've got these belief systems from the right. They're just sewn into ego structure, right? And actually into neural pathways in your brain. And so you're just responding because it's like the other side just pings them. Again, that's a pinging. You're just hijacked. You're hijacked by the reactivity, the beliefs of your ego structure. Where if you're doing deep inner work, quality work to be a leader, to be an evolving human being, fit for leading, you are inspecting those belief systems. You're critiquing those belief systems. You're undoing your ego's control over you so that something new can arise, and it does arise. As I said before, most people have no idea about how powerful their consciousness is and what they can tap into, because most people don't undo their ego structure because they're too interested in belonging to a tribe. Another thing I'm seeing at the moment is, again, people don't want to think. Most people don't want to think. You've got a whole proportion of populations worldwide just waiting for things to get back to normal, getting back to entertainment, right? Great. I like some entertainment. I like a beer, right? But again, there's a numbing in that. It's not thinking. It's not evolving. It's not moving. Anyway, I hope you learned something. Any questions, send them through to me. I really love working with people. If you've got a challenge, a problem as a man, it could be in your relationships, it could be in your career, it could be in your business, could be emotional, send the questions through. I love to share information based on requests from people. And if you want to come work with me, do so. You'll find you can have a chat with me. Let's go to perrymardon.com. Anyway, thank you. See you next time.